Let me ask a simple question. If I want to hire someone on my behalf to make mouth noises in a specific order in a particular room using words we all understand, who's the government to tell me I'm not allowed to do that? Not whether it's a good idea, not whether I'll win, just whether I'm allowed. I'm Parker, and on today's episode of The Government is the Problem, we're going to take a look at licensing, the problems it causes, and the government's role. Why do I make an example of law? It's simple. Law is speech. Not only that, it's structured, constrained, and procedural, but it is still speech. What makes law speech so special is that there are outcomes and they're visible. Win, lose, settle, screw up publicly. Clients understand this when they hire lawyers, yet the state insists that you may not hire whom you want unless the government has approved them. That's the thing we're examining. Not competence, not ethics, not education, but authority. To understand my problem with licensing, it helps to look at what it takes to become a lawyer. This varies by state, but in the United States, the average path looks like this: a 4 year bachelor's degree, a 3 year law degree, a multi day bar exam, a character and fitness review, final approval by the state. That represents 7 years, 6 figures, and total institutional compliance. And at the end of that, there is no guarantee whether you're good, you'll win, be hired, or even keep your license. And if that isn't bad enough, your license and your ability to earn a living exist at the pleasure of the state. Let me ask you this: if licensing were about quality, you'd expect things like performance thresholds or outcome tracking. But there's none of that. What we have is a binary: fully permitted or completely prohibited, which tells us something uncomfortable. Licensing doesn't exist to guarantee competence, it manufactures artificial scarcity. White collar workers will never admit this, but in practice, licensing schemes act like informal unions. Not in name, not in rhetoric, but in effect. Confused? Let's take a look at actual unions. A union restricts who is allowed to work. It controls entry, it limits supply, and it raises prices and wages for people already inside. Now let's take a look at licensing again. Lo and behold, it does the same thing. Blue collar unions say it openly, and white collar licensing hides behind credentials. Different language, same outcome, and the enforcement mechanism is identical. Some people will say we need licenses because standards matter. I agree that standards are necessary, but they aren't always contingent on licensing. Take our internet infrastructure, for instance. Finance, hospitals, and emergency services are systems on which people's lives depend on every day and are maintained by unlicensed professionals. The government doesn't determine who is permitted to access a router. It doesn't forbid hiring. It doesn't criminalize competence. And when someone is bad at their job, reality enforces the standard. If the government enforces a barrier, it owns the consequences: higher prices, restricted labor, and fewer options. Entire classes of people are filtered out before they're even allowed to compete. That's not safety, that's authority. So after watching this, ask yourself whether licenses are really about competence or permission. This is AnvilHammerForge. Let's get to work.